Tom Chojnacki is the founder of Satsback, a platform that helps you save Bitcoin whenever you shop online. In our conversation, we discussed the concept of Satsback rewards. We discussed why consumers love Bitcoin as a form of loyalty point and the addressable market for retail and e-commerce loyalty rewards. I also got Tom all set up on Fountain. I've added him to the show splits. So if you enjoyed this conversation and if you learned something new, you can send in some sats, you can send in comments and questions. 50% of the sats will go to Tom, 50% will go to me, and both of us will be able to read your comments and questions. Just a quick shout out before we get into the episode. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the industry standard and next generation provider for Lightning Network infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Zebedee. That's Zebedee, and Zebedee is your portal into the world of Bitcoin gaming. We'll have more from Voltage and Zebedee later in the show. Tom, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me today. I am really excited to talk to you about Satsback. I think for listeners who aren't familiar with the platform, can you give us a brief background on what the platform is and why you decided to build it?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin. First of all, I wanted to say congrats with the podcast. I've been had a chance to see a couple of those episodes, and you've been doing a great job, and some amazing guests that I'll have a hard time to live up to, I guess. But yeah, sure. So the idea for Satsback was born through, I guess it's wanting to scratch your own itch as Bitcoiners based in the EU, in Europe. We also wanted to earn sats when shopping online, and we didn't have any service like Lolly or Fold available here yet. So we decided to go out and build it. And it turns out that there's other people like us, and it's other Bitcoiners that like to save in sats, but as well as it's a great way to get newbies on board and help them experience Bitcoin and the Lightning Network in a low friction, no KYC way. So we think it's hard to convince someone to buy something they don't understand, but it's a lot easier to tell them like, hey, here's this loyalty platform where you can just do your online shopping and earn some sats while you do that. Right.
And do you get the sense that most of the users on Satsback are in that first camp where they've recognized Bitcoin's a thing, they may want some, but they don't really want to go through the process of buying it? And is it really just like reducing the friction for all the users, or do you also have Bitcoin power users that are, at all costs trying to stack as many sats as possible and using this as a mechanism to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to say that we're still pretty early on our journey. It's still pretty early stage, and till now, I would say a big part of our users are Bitcoiners. So they were like the early adopters that, for them it was a no-brainer. We didn't have to convince them. They were familiar of similar platforms in the US. So I would say many of them are existing Bitcoiners that already have Bitcoin and just want to get more of it, want to save more when shopping online. But definitely they would then invite their friends or their no-coiner or pre-coiner friends that that haven't bought Bitcoin yet. So we're seeing more of those, and I think we will increasingly in the future as well. Sorry, I don't know if that was your question. Did I answer it? Yeah, I think.
Can you describe the process of like you have different kinds of Satsback rewards in the Bitcoin ecosystem today? There's what you guys are doing is more like an affiliate model approach, as I understand it, but there's also like more traditional Satsback offerings on credit cards. I know some exchanges have, or debit cards. Can you explain the distinction between the different, platforms that offer cashback or Satsback rewards?
Sure, I can try. So the one area that's been getting pretty crowded recently was the card, the debit or credit card rewards, where you get a fixed 1 or 2% back whenever you spend at stores, and that's a different model that basically takes the you know how Visa and MasterCard would charge a merchant a small fee for accepting payments using cards. They would take part of that and reward users with it. So it's also called Cashback, and it's also what companies like Gemini would launch their own card and say, here's 1 or 2% on every purchase. So we don't do that yet, at least. The other model would be through selling gift cards or vouchers for users to go and then spend at various merchants. And we wouldn't do that either. What we're doing is more of this affiliate model where you would click on a link that would redirect you to the shop's platform, and as long as you buy something, we earn a small commission for that. We would then turn that commission into Bitcoin and share most of it with our users. So yeah, you're right. There's various models of how you can save or get sats back for what you spend. Many users would actually use a certain card that gives them sats back for every transaction they do, and then use that card on our website and like double stack. So that's like the pro level of you know, getting the most that you can from shopping online. We've seen that happen before, but yeah, we're focused on this single affiliate model for now, which was like the easiest to launch with and try out. But yeah, we're definitely looking into the other areas where we could offer higher rewards to our users.
Yeah. So in this affiliate model, what's a typical reward? I know they probably vary across retailers, but is it reasonable for someone to expect the reward to be higher than what they might find with one of the like debit cards or credit cards?
Yeah. Maybe with it, yeah, I guess in all cases, yes, because it's like with the debit and credit cards, the only reward that the company can offer is the interchange fee, which is usually in the US it's a lot higher, around 2%. In Europe it's even lower, around 1%. So if you're getting sats back on every, or cash back on every transaction that you make with your card, it's usually a lot lower. What we do is we'll work with these merchants that, depending on their margin model, are able to offer a lot more. So if it's someone like, I don't know, a domain registrar or like a VPN provider, his marginal cost is a lot lower, and they can offer up to, you know, even 50%. If it's like someone selling software, that would come you know, you'd get a lot lower deals with something like electronics. But then if you look at clothes or shoes, it would average out to something around 4 to 5% for all of our transactions. But yeah, it's generally a lot higher than what you would get with these cards.
Interesting. So that's a cool way of framing it, because I guess like if the addressable market for a debit card or a credit card is that 2% or whatever the interchange is, then the rewards basically cannot sustainably be higher than that for everyone. There's just no way, right? Like if the processors are earning 2% from merchants, they have to take their own cut somewhere along the line, and then they can give out much of that to users, but they can't go above that, really. They can't give out 5% if they're taking 2%.
In that case, yes, but then they could have a special deal with someone. Let's say, I don't know, if Coinbase has their card, they could say, you know, for anyone using Coinbase card, we'll offer this extra reward. So generally, yes, you're right. But in some cases, you could have offline cashback offers that are higher. And then in some cases, like with crypto.com, they're able to offer a lot higher with the condition that they pay it out in their own coin, which they obviously can print as much as they can. So they actually go and say, like, we'll refund your whole Netflix or Spotify subscription, but we pay it out in our own coin, and then you need to stake that coin. So we're in that sense, they could do these things when you're printing your own money. You can do whatever you want. You could pay people like 100% of what they spend.
Right. Yeah. So they've kind of warped that business model because they have their own money printer.
Yeah, pretty much.
But generally, yeah, I get the idea there that like there's a ceiling, a pretty low ceiling on the rewards that a credit card could provide. And then if you go directly to merchants, you now have access to, basically merchants can go up as high as their marketing budget, right? Because that's really what they're passing on is like, if they have a 50% marketing budget or margin for marketing, they can pass that on to you guys. And
exactly, you're right. So for the merchant, the proposition is that they would usually spend money on acquiring a user in using various channels online and offline. What we do as a cashback platform is we bring that user directly to them that is most likely ready to purchase something. So they can see that user came from us, and we would say that and what we see in many cases is that our users are so passionate about earning sats that they would specifically look for stores that are listed on our website in order to buy their, I don't know, pet food, for example, right? And they would specifically try to buy at those stores. So our argument for them is that this is like actually incremental sales. I'm sure there's some people that would buy stuff from those places anyway, but in most cases, we would argue that these are like incremental sales where Bitcoiners and our users would go to these stores specifically because they're getting a deal there.
Yeah. Now, what is it that keeps users going back to you guys specifically? Because I imagine for a merchant who, let's say a merchant has a 50% margin and they're looking to get new users. The merchant wouldn't really care, I guess, if the users are coming from you specifically or from another competitor, right? Like, how do you make sure that, how do you build a moat around this idea that merchants are allowing anyone to earn these affiliate rewards?
They usually would, right? So the merchant actually doesn't care. He would be open to working with any cashback company that can drive sales to him. And yeah, they would make some special deals for whoever is driving the most sales, I guess. But it's in many cases the merchants wouldn't even know that they're working with like a Bitcoin company paying out sats, because they just have so many that it's hard for them to keep track. They're just open to the general cashback model, and then providers would do what they do, whether it's like points or sats or cash or whatever. So I think what makes our users super interested in using us for their shopping is, obviously a far superior reward in the form of Bitcoin and sats that, tends to go up in value over time. But I think as well as what differentiates us from other even Bitcoin rewards companies is that we're Lightning native. So we launched with Lightning only withdrawals, and thanks to that, we don't have like a minimum amount before you withdraw. So you could actually order some lunch online, and like a day or two later, when your transaction gets approved, pay that out, even if it's like something as small as 500 sats. So I think that Lightning element, there's a growing community of people that are fascinated and passionate about Lightning, and for them, they'd rather maybe if they can get a better deal even in Bitcoin somewhere else, they'd rather support a company doing it over Lightning and get their sats on into their Lightning wallet.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you provide some perspective on educating people about Lightning, especially the users that might come just for the rewards and maybe aren't Bitcoiners to begin with? How has that process been of teaching users about what the Lightning Network is? Because I know even for Bitcoiners, it can be a daunting task to get set up on Lightning, and there's a different format for transactions, and you got QR codes. How do you simplify that process for an end user?
Yeah, I think what we did is we just sort of forced users to use Lightning because that was the only way for them to pay out. And when you look at least where we are right now, the UX improved a lot, and you have multiple wallets that would, I would say paying out using Lightning and using LN URL is maybe even simpler than paying out to your Bitcoin wallet, because all you have to do is just scan a QR code. But there has been an element of education. Some people are coming in and saying like, what is this Lightning Bitcoin? I want real Bitcoin, and but thankfully, like, the growth of the Lightning Network and, El Salvador adopting Bitcoin thanks to the Lightning Network made it easier for us. And now generally people understand that it is the same thing. It's just another layer, another way of that helps them pay out their rewards easier and cheaper, or for free in our case. So there, Bitcoin is generally, and I mentioned that most of our users are that they tend to be up to date, and they tend to be pretty tech savvy to understand. I guess there will be that we will need to do some more in terms of education when we go to the public, but I'm hoping that when we go like mainstream and maybe cross the chasm into like the general public, but what I'm thinking is that at least like when you look at wallets like Moon, they're kind of abstracting the difference between Lightning and on-chain, and you have one balance, and then when you can scan a QR code. And I think eventually, soon enough, people won't really know the difference. It's like when we're having this chat over whatever app we're using, we don't know the tech behind it. We just know that it works, right? We have streaming video, and it works great. So I think we're going to get to a similar stage with Lightning and Bitcoin. It's maybe people won't really need to know. They'll just be happy to see their sats streaming into whatever wallet that they're using, or with podcasts even. Actually, one thing I wanted to mention that we're really excited about and is that we recently implemented Lightning address withdrawals. So we completely eliminated the payout process, and I think we were the first to do that. At least when you look at Bitcoin rewards companies, you could enter your Lightning address into your account with us, and then you wouldn't need to withdraw your sats anymore. They would just come into your Lightning wallet. So you just get a push notification whenever a transaction gets approved, and you would have, I like to think of it as streaming sats, as you would like with the podcasting 2.0 that I'm sure you're excited about. I think you had Oscar from Fountain as your maybe one of the first few guests, right?
Yeah. That's awesome to hear. The Lightning addresses are now integrated. They just integrated Lightning addresses on Fountain.
I just saw that yesterday, or
maybe
even today.
Get your Fountain username, and I'm going to set you up on a split here, because I can now add anyone in to the show. If I have a guest on, I can add that user, their Fountain username. I can just plug it into the show splits, and it just works. I
read that announcement. It's really incredible. It's like, these things that are possible. It's almost like we're talking about the future, but it's now. Mm-hmm. So the same thing with us. Like, we could easily split your Satsback rewards if you decide to donate a part of it to, let's say, HRF or OpenSats, something that's supporting open source developers. We could do that as well, or maybe like even you could dedicate some of your sats to your favorite podcast creator, and the fact that we're interoperable between each other, like every app that's on Lightning can work together, just means that as this ecosystem evolves and grows, there's a lot more value added to our users as well, who then have sats and can do a lot more with them. So yeah, it's really exciting to be at the forefront of this, and definitely I'd love to share. I actually don't. Yeah, I think I might need to update the Fountain app to get my Lightning address, but I'd love to try that out.
Yeah, we'll get you sorted out. I had an idea as you were talking through these. The interoperability, I think, is a really cool idea. But also, if we step back and think about a Lightning transaction from a merchant standpoint. What if we get to a point where merchants are accepting Lightning transactions? Can they split the payment from their side and instantly send a split to you, and then you send a split to the user, and then a user decides to donate a split to HRF? Like, how far can this?
Right. So
there's levels to this, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. Like, we keep thinking about, what is Satsback going to look like in a hyper Bitcoinized world, and we think that definitely Satsback and Cashback is still going to exist, even though most businesses will be accepting Bitcoin, most users will be paying in Bitcoin. But then with the use of Lightning, how will that affect the industry that we're in? And like you mentioned, it's maybe hard to imagine even at this stage, but it makes sense that, because right now the partners that we have pay us out in fiat, and we have to wait like a month or two before they pay us. And part of that is because they need to verify these transactions, but part of it is also because they're using legacy financial rails that cost money, and there's no reason why they couldn't on like Lightning Network stream these commissions to us as well. Why should we wait weeks or months to get paid? And they could just easily split that, I guess, automatically between us and our users. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I think I keep thinking about like internet in the 90s, where we couldn't really imagine. We were there like visiting websites and waiting for pictures to load, and now we have streaming 4K video, and like everything we do is online. So I think similarly, with Bitcoin and especially the Lightning Network, we're gonna see use cases that we can't even imagine right now. Like back then, imagine an Uber or Airbnb or something like that. So it's crazy to think, but it's like, so this is just one of the industries that we're confident that Bitcoin and Lightning will disrupt, but it's gonna disrupt many others. Like there's probably not an industry where it's not gonna affect it, right? Like as a podcaster, I'm sure like with podcasting 2.0 and everything going on there, it's fascinating to see that your users can stream sats, and then you can share them automatically with your guest or your producer, or it's incredible.
Yeah, 100%. I also have the same feeling that the innovation happening today in the Lightning Network is only a tiny fraction of what it will eventually become, and we're only kind of tapping into the kind of like adjacent possibilities and not examining the ones that are like 10 steps away. But as we build these building blocks, I think it gets us closer to being able to do interesting things, right? Each new building block and each new element in the Lightning community can be then combined with other elements to create new business models and new opportunities for interesting ideas and entrepreneurs to build things. So I think it's really cool that we're coming up with all these new ideas in the Lightning space. And it seems to me that Lightning's now hit a critical mass of excitement. Like, it just seems every day there's a new company building on Lightning now. There's a new, announcement. There's people hiring. It's just, there's fundraising happening. There's like a lot of VC money now lining up, ready to get into Lightning startups. And I don't know, like, I don't get the sense that was happening last year. What's your opinion on how kind of the growth of the Lightning ecosystem has evolved?
Yeah, you're right. It's there's definitely a lot more happening, but I still think like it's easy to get caught up in this bubble, because we're passionate about this, so we live this, and we're following the same people on Twitter, and everyone's excited about the same things, and yeah, there's companies raising more money, but at the same time, when you look at like I think Lightning is still the best kept secret. Like when you look at the crypto industry, or when you look at the general public, not many people are aware of it. Like, of course, everyone's heard about Bitcoin at this time, but but Lightning is still something very new to them. So I think when we're talking about like mainstream adoption, I think we're still pretty early. And then what we keep thinking is that, you know, generally, like when you look at the crypto and the wider crypto industry, is you still see a lot of people distracted with those tokens, that when you actually spend some time thinking about it, like the whole use case of these alternative altcoins or shitcoins, it was, you know, the faster transaction speed. And now, you know, if you only spend like an hour thinking about it, it's like Bitcoin obsoletes that, but then people are so invested in those projects that they will maybe even deny it themselves. And, you know, when you look at the whole industry, it's still, Lightning is still a small part, and I would still think it's like the best kept secret, because it just works great. And, you know, it's been a few years, and it's almost like magic. And, you know, I think you had Pierre Rochard on a previous episode, and he said like there will never be another blockchain that's quicker than Lightning, with like infinite throughput. And yeah, so I'm still a bit maybe not frustrated, but I think I don't know what it is, but like a lot of the new people coming in, I guess nowadays it's a lot easier for you to find the signal. It was a lot harder a few years ago, maybe when we were coming in, to find that. But it's still, most of these new users would come in and just dive into crypto and buy these meme coins and buy these tokens, and I really think that's like a distraction to adoption. That I'm sure it is for Lightning as well. You know, you could look at the amount of developers that are working on Ethereum versus that on Lightning, even though it's improving and there's a lot more, like you mentioned, investments happening in the space. But still, when you consider, or where you look at, you know, how much money goes into crypto compared to Bitcoin Lightning businesses, we're like a drop in the ocean. You know, it's like maybe 1%. Every other day you hear of another like crypto fund raising billions, right? So it's, that, I guess it's a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, you know, we're so confident that we're right that it tends to bother you less with time.
Yeah.
And you know, these people will come around.
Sword. It's like, on the one hand, you're not going to attract all the capital that's looking for a quick win and a token pump, but on the other hand, you're going to get the users that you do get are going to be, you know, they're there for the payments, and you know they're there for the actual use case of using Lightning, and you can be pretty confident that they're not there, you know, to pump some token, because there's no token to pump.
Yeah.
You know?
Even though they could, right? They could, like we have users, like, we're not stopping anyone from sending their sats over Lightning to Kraken and buying Shiba Inu or whatever. Like, They can do whatever they want. We're just trying to do our part in you know, in focusing on what we think is important, on what we think is the signal. And, you know, we always recommend stacking sats, saving your sats. Sure, participate in the economy, but, you know, there's no better technology for saving than Bitcoin. And I think everything else is noise. Yeah.
And in the context of the larger economy, and if we're going to kind of zoom out and think about how small Lightning is today in comparison to not only the crypto space but the world economy. I was doing a little bit of research and found some high-level numbers. You can correct me if any of these sound off, but I saw that $108 billion is kind of like an estimated annual cashback volume. The e-commerce industry is roughly 5 trillion, and global commerce, so, you know, e-commerce will be 5, everything else would combine to be 20 trillion. Those numbers sound roughly correct, and how do we get from the point where we're at today in Lightning, tapping into probably 1% of 1%, to now, how do we get to the scale of trillions of dollars and billions, hundreds of billions in cashback rewards?
Yeah, those numbers are insane, and they're really they're really large, and all of these industries that you mentioned, e-commerce especially, has been still growing very quickly. So it's like those are the numbers, but they're still growing at like a rate of maybe 10 or 20% per year. With cashback, that's correct. We have similar figures when we look at least the initial addressable market for what we think it's obvious that Bitcoin is going to disrupt this segment of the loyalty industry, if not all of it. I think this is just the biggest no-brainer. Like, why would you want cashback where you know it's just like 100 times worse than Bitcoin? It's obvious for us, it's obvious for Bitcoiners, but still Bitcoiners are a small percentage of the population. So I think as more people come to realize that, you know, there's this Bitcoin thing, and I think the whole macro environment is sort of in a weird way helping us with, you know, increasing inflation. I'm based in Poland, and we just had a number of I guess it's the official CPI, so it's not even probably accurate to look at that, but it's 12.5% compared to last year, which is you know, I think US is probably nowhere as high, but we still know that the realistic numbers for inflation are a lot higher. Like when you look at the things you're buying, or whether, you know, if you're interested in buying a house, you know that 10% is nowhere close to what you experience. So I think with that, as people come to realize that, you know, their money is at an increasing rate losing purchasing power, Bitcoin will become more obvious. Just as, you know, many people say it's a lot easier to explain Bitcoin to people in Argentina or in Venezuela, right? Mm-hmm. Or in maybe nowadays in Lebanon. And unfortunately, we're going to be, I think we got to a stage where you're going to see these hyperinflationary events in more places around the world. And that's going to obviously accelerate the adoption for Bitcoin, right? And it's not going to make sense anymore. You know, if my local currency is hyperinflating, why should I use a cashback service that's going to pay me I don't know, a month after I buy something in a local currency that's losing like half of its value in a month? Mm-hmm. So I think this adoption would have happened naturally anyway, as more people realize and understand. But I think the whole macro environment, it will just accelerate things, right, as these fiat currencies lose more value.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Voltage. Voltage is the industry standard for Lightning Network infrastructure. Creating layer 2 applications and services on top of Bitcoin starts with Voltage, where you can spin up nodes, get access to liquidity, optimize your node, and much more. Voltage is leading the way as the next generation provider of Lightning Network infrastructure. And if you want to get a free trial and start using Voltage today, you can do so at voltage.cloud. Now, if I'm a user on Satsback, can I get a payment back to me instantly, or is it still, because the merchant is accepting fiat, you have to wait a few weeks before the transaction confirms on their side?
Yeah, so again, not instantly, and it depends what you buy. Again, like if it's online, if you're ordering food online, then there's no returns there, and you're usually going to get your transaction approved within like a day or two. If it's something like shoes where you have a return policy, then we obviously can't pay out the reward while you can still return the product that you bought, because otherwise people will just be ordering a bunch of stuff, returning them, and taking off with the sats. So there is a wait period involved there, but many of our users would like do a lot of their shopping regularly, and that wouldn't bother them because they would have like this constant stream of sats just coming into their wallet as they continue their normal online shopping. So yeah, it depends on what you buy. Like with Booking.com, that I think even users in the US could use with us, Booking will not pay out the commission before you had your stay. So if you're booking like holiday for 3 months from now, they're not going to pay out the commission until your holiday is complete. So
Right.
it really depends on what you buy. But yeah, in most cases, there is a wait period of like a month, if not
Yeah.
longer.
So the value prop then for users today is maybe it's a little bit faster, but realistically there's still going to be some delay from the merchant side, and then you're going to get instant, you're going to get zero cost basically transactions, and you get to store it right away in this sound money. I imagine that's going to, as this takes off and as this becomes more widely adopted for all cashback programs offering Bitcoin rewards, that's quite a bit of buy pressure on Bitcoin, the asset, if you think about it. Like if it's $100 billion industry today, and if a portion of that moves over to Bitcoin, all of a sudden you're getting like billions or tens of billions of dollars that are just buying Bitcoin. And I don't know, do you get the sense that people are kind of storing this once they get it? Or, like personally, like the cashback rewards that I've gotten at credit cards in the past, they're never big enough to, for me to do a whole lot with them. I just kind of let them sit there and I let them accrue value, and I just I sit on it, right? Like it's not like it's going to pay my bills when I get $7 back or something in a month. So what do you think people are doing with this? And do you think this is realistic, that this is actually going to be meaningful buy pressure on the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned like 100 billion estimated value of the global cashback market, but then there's the loyalty market that is another likely 100 billion on top of that there. And together with the DCA army of more people just stacking regularly and buying Bitcoin, these types of reward platforms like us, where we need to buy every day no matter what the price is, and we're pretty small at this point, but there's going to be, we're going to grow, and there's going to be more companies like us, and eventually the whole industry will naturally gravitate towards Bitcoin. I think that's inevitable, and definitely that's going to create this floor of just constant buying pressure. And yeah, like you realized accurately, like let's say we're able to offer 2% on Booking.com purchases for all of our users. Booking.com alone does so much volume that if everyone realized we exist and did what I think is the no-brainer, that every time they book something on Booking, they'd go through us and earn a few percent in Sats. If everyone went and did that, that would be huge for the price of Bitcoin. And then you look at every other e-commerce platform. That definitely, I think maybe that's what we're seeing right now, is like even though the macro environment would suggest that there's this risk off environment, and maybe Bitcoin should be dumping, and we're still stuck there at like 40K for the past couple of weeks, that maybe that DCA army and rewards that need to constantly buy Bitcoin, maybe that's what's causing it. And I think it's a good thing. The more services we have like that, and the more people DCA, the less volatile Bitcoin will be, and the faster, I think, the faster and I guess the easier adoption will be for users in especially developing countries, where volatility for them is still an issue. So if you have someone in El Salvador looking at their balance, all of a sudden their Bitcoin is worth 30 or 40% less, that's gonna make them a bit uncomfortable with storing more of their savings, even though it's like on a short-term basis. They don't look at things, they live from like month to month, so they'd be worried about that. So I think definitely, yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
What do you think about Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, and how we get to a point where people are not only earning in Bitcoin, but then also able to spend in Bitcoin? What are the constraints today? Because I know, in different countries, it depends on, you have different capital gains requirements and different tax reporting. Is that the primary constraint to getting people to spend Bitcoin? Or do you think price plays into this too? And how do we get to a point where we can develop a circular kind of spending and earning economy?
Yeah, so actually one of the reasons why we started with rewards and we started with Satsback is we believe that it's not necessary to for a money to be a medium of exchange before it gets adopted widely and before it gets mass adoption, that it's enough if it's a store of value first, which was, there was this large push of companies trying to get everyone to pay with Bitcoin for things online in the early days, where, it didn't really make sense for these merchants to integrate because not that many people yet, more do nowadays, but not a large portion of the population has Bitcoin. So that's why we focused on helping people save in Bitcoin. And I think, it obviously makes sense because everyone who has spent Bitcoin in the past, maybe unless it's like supporting a podcaster or spending some sats in El Salvador, which is fun, but pretty much every time you spent Bitcoin on buying something, maybe you didn't necessarily need, you regret that, because then a few years later you keep thinking like, oh my God, if I just kept those sats, that'd be worth so much right now. And there's that great website, Bitcoin or shit, right? And I don't know if you know it. It's
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. So it's like, instead of, if you didn't buy that iPod in, wherever, like 7 years ago, and bought Bitcoin instead, you would have had that much. But so I think that might be, at least for people that understand Bitcoin and understand how early we still are in the monetization phase, they I don't like spending my Bitcoin, right? I'd much rather earn it. But I'm still happy to spend sats on so maybe there's something about Lightning that makes it that people spend their sats more, because it's just, I don't know if it's more fun, or if it's if the experience is, or maybe Bitcoiners also want to support these new ideas like podcasting 2.0, and other businesses that are on Lightning. So I think that the tax treatment in various countries is definitely plays a role. I just don't know if it's that big of a role, because I don't think most people that are spending sats online, like whether it's like a few bucks here or there, are gonna report that, because at the end of the day it's like almost unenforceable. Plus I honestly believe that it's now a foreign currency, right? Bitcoin is now legal tender in not 1 but 2 or 3 countries.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't think it should be treated. There shouldn't be any capital gains on spending Bitcoin. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I guess I don't think it's slowing down people from spending their Bitcoin. I think possibly the element of we know that it's going to be worth a lot more in the future. So maybe if I spend Bitcoin, I'd want to make sure that I replace it as well. So I don't Yeah, there's going to be an opportunity cost for sure. For me, it just seems like I agree that there's going to be some constraint on capital gains tax. I don't know how big that one is, but there's also a constraint on price. People want to hold on to something they know is going to go up. So I see that, but I also see the side from the merchant on Lightning. It just makes this whole economy so much smoother, and it just I think eventually merchants are going to come to realize that they can save a lot of money on Lightning, and they can save a lot of time and fraud and chargebacks and all this stuff that they have to deal with on credit card networks may be abstracted away if we get to a point where everyone's on Lightning. And so from the merchant perspective, I think it makes this loop a lot smoother, right? You can go from spending to instantly blasting it out to all the merchant suppliers, to you guys. You can then blast it out to all your users.
then it lands right in the user's wallet, and it's like instantly there, and they can go spend it right away once again. So it does really speed up that circular economy if we can get rid of that. Like the fiat is the slowest part of this, spending and earning economy right now.
Of course, yeah. And and we didn't mention that if I said like I don't like spending my my Bitcoin, but if you're earning in Bitcoin, then you kind of need to. And as more people earn Bitcoin, businesses are gonna feel the need to start accepting it. Apart from what you mentioned of just the obvious benefits of accepting Bitcoin, like with chargebacks and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's obvious, and I think what Jack Mallers is doing with Strike is incredible, and it's definitely important for, and we do see like the immense value in a circular economy. Like we don't think it's enough for you to hold. Like if everyone was just holding their Bitcoin, then there wouldn't be much activity, and miners wouldn't be getting paid. So yeah, I think, but it's more of this. I think these circular economies are popping up organically in these places like El Salvador, and I think in Africa there's this massive potential for communities and cities to maybe leapfrog, even like they did with telephones. They just went to mobile directly. They never had a landline. They just went straight to mobile. Maybe that's going to be similar for them, where they're unbanked completely, and then they're jumping onto something like Bitcoin. Yeah, because it just makes sense, because most people there have a mobile phone, but many of them wouldn't even have an ID, right?
Right.
So yeah.
I want to get into a discussion about Satsback in the way you guys do it today, and loyalty rewards. And I'm thinking more like airline miles. Let's use that as an example. To me, like rationally, it seems like the use case is for, like, people will want Sats if they can choose between Sats or the Sat value of airline miles. But airline miles are still a thing, and this was true with dollars too, right? Like it's preferable to have the dollars over the miles, but miles are still a thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that Sats can kind of like earning Bitcoin can replace some of this loyalty card industry, or is this going to be a use case that Bitcoin doesn't kind of disrupt? I'm
confident that it will eventually. All you need is a major airline that will do the new thing and start offering Bitcoin rewards, and then all of a sudden everyone's flying with that airline. So I think eventually, yes, it might take longer than we think, because I guess it's similar with these in-game tokens, with like you have the V-Bucks, or I don't know, I'm not much of a gamer, but I know many of these games have their own in-game currency. And they're not too interested with letting people pay out that currency. They kind of want to keep it in game, control the supply of it, make it expire whenever they want people to like go spend their miles. And I think it's similar with airlines and with retailers. There's a lot of benefit for them to have their own loyalty point, right? It doesn't cost them anything. They can print as much as they want. Users are kind of tied to that ecosystem that, if I wanted to use my points somewhere else, it's hard to do. If I wanted to sell them, I can't really do that. So it's like, I think you're right that, eventually we're gonna move towards that direction, but I think, they're gonna do it when they're forced to. They wouldn't do it just because they wanted to. Just like, it's I guess the adoption of Sats within games is maybe slower than we expected. There's a lot going on, but it's like these games prefer to have their own, I guess, shitcoin, right? There's advantages in printing your own loyalty point, just as there is with printing your own money.
That's a really good point, and it's because to the user, the user's probably always going to want the money that they can use at the most places, which would be, you know, cash or Bitcoin, right? Like they don't want the loyalty points, but it's the merchant, I guess, that is benefiting from issuing their own, you know, token or gift card. You know, if I'm shopping at the mall, I'm going to get a gift card, and the merchant's happy about that, I guess, because they can kind of set the terms and conditions on that money and how it's used, and they can kind of direct that flow of capital.
I just had a similar situation when I was looking at flights to Miami, and I had some loyalty points, and I realized that they were expiring soon. So I had a bunch saved up through, like, just passively. I had a card linked to some points, and they were going to expire. So it's like, well, what's the, you know, it's good for the company, not good for the user. And I think eventually there's going to be more solutions that are better for the user and maybe less so for the large companies, but it'll be interesting to see. I think we're still early, like we're at the beginning, early phase of Bitcoin disrupting these industries. Yeah,
I want to get into your favorite Lightning applications so far. Is there anything that you've used that you're particularly excited about in the Lightning ecosystem?
Oh yeah, I've actually mentioned a couple of times. I've used the podcasting 2.0. And that's just fascinating. But Lightning address, like wallets that support that as well, has been really cool as a kind of UX improvement from compared to, you know, sending invoices, generating invoices, sending those. Yeah, I think that those are the two. I think those applications that are showing people what is possible with Lightning and what might be possible, as well as things as like Lightning login, Lightning authentication. It's we're thinking of implementing that. We actually started working on doing that with Satsback. There's no reason why I guess there's reasons why I would want your email address, but we don't do much email marketing anyway. We don't need to know your identity when you're shopping with us. And we could just as easily let you log in with your Lightning wallet. So it's just like apps that are using these new features that are showing people what's really possible, because, you know, and you know, and those things have been accelerating really, like it's even hard to keep up. Even if you're focused on Bitcoin and Lightning, is really hard to keep up with everything that's going on. Especially for me, because I'm not nearly as technical as I'd like to be. Leon or CTO is on top of those things. I try to keep up, but it's just yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, one idea that I hear mentioned quite a bit, but hasn't been fully implemented yet, is the idea of putting a Lightning address as an email. And I think Zebedee's working on this. I think there might be a couple other teams working on it. So where you can just like have an email client that is your Lightning address, and it can paywall content.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I've actually been looking. I'm wondering, like, these are one of these things that you think is just like, yeah, of course, this is genius. Someone should build this, and it's not going to happen until someone does. So it's yeah. I was actually looking. I forget the name, but I was looking at a company, maybe a startup that's doing that, but I don't think it's with Bitcoin. So I think they're called Gated or something like that. And it's obviously a big problem because you know, most of our email inboxes are just flooded with, you know, a lot of it is spam, a lot of it is unnecessary messages, and you know, I think Michael Saylor came out and said, with Twitter, like, that's, you know, Sats could be a way of combating the spam on Twitter and the spam bots. I definitely think with emails, I haven't heard that Zebedee's working on doing that, but that would be super cool.
They mentioned it on a past episode. That's why I know it.
Oh, really?
Mentioned it on
that would be amazing.
There's also another company working on anti-spam for calls and messages, kind of like Twitter DMs. It's called Vita, and they just launched recently. But pretty cool idea. Basically, you can set a rate, and anyone can, you know, I can have a Twitter bot in my DMs that anytime someone tries to start a message with me, it can say, hey, I don't check my Twitter DMs. If you want to message me, you can message me on Vita. It's going to cost you, 5 cents per minute, or 5 cents per minute for a call, or maybe it's 10 cents per message or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I noticed that, I think yesterday on Twitter, whether it was like a Jack, like I don't know who it was, but that's, yeah, super fascinating. And I think there is like an overlap with Bitcoin and what, how Bitcoiners start to value their time more. Our attention and our time is super valuable, and we start thinking more about like how we can preserve it and maybe be more effective or present when we're working, and then spend the free time that we have with our family. So I think these things, these types of products there's some alignment with Bitcoiners, right? I'd rather, especially if it's me trying to reach out to someone I don't know, or, speak to an investor, I'd be happy to show them I'm serious by paying like a few thousand sats. But it would definitely filter out. And I think, maybe even the early days of, was it proof of work, was actually, intention there was to use it for spam. Like I think these ideas were around for ages. Yeah, I think it was meant to combat. Yeah, they've been around for a while, but it's nice to see it. They're starting to be appreciated and started to be. You're right. Like, people are recognizing their time is worth something. And I think the early internet, we got so good at distributing content for basically no cost, and the money side of it didn't keep up to speed, right? Like, we still had these antiquated fiat rails that had such high fixed costs and such long delays that it didn't make sense to gate all of these, communications platforms with fiat. But now that we have the tools to make it instant and to make it granular, you can go down to any denomination. Now we can monetize any amount of time. Whereas previously we could only monetize like, your 9-to-5 job, you get paid for it, but you're not going to get paid per email or per, minute you spend working on a project. Now you can get paid for, per minute that someone listens to the podcast, per email open, per, every time a page loads, you could get a payment. And I think we're just kind of rebuilding the gates there, because the stuff on the internet has to eventually, I think it has to be paid for by someone. It's either going to get paid for directly by users or by audiences, or it's going to get paid for by advertisers, and then you're going to have all the platforms that are saying it's free, but really just feeding you ads and taking your data and all that. So it's like, there's no free lunch here. And I think now what we're headed towards is a more sustainable path where the money that is being spent by users is going directly to the people creating content and people, building businesses on the internet. And it's a one-to-one relationship, and you don't have to worry about this kind of like hidden cost of free on the internet. Oh, definitely. I'm not sure if you were aware of that error code that was, I think, programmed into the internet protocols, that was payment not found. And it was unused for the longest time because we didn't have a way of sending value over the internet seamlessly. And we now do. So it's tying a monetary value to those things, I think will change the way for the better. I'm hoping actually these business models will change, and maybe I'm okay with receiving some ads, but I'd like to decide what data of mine gets shared with who, and then get compensated for that directly, potentially by the company. So I think that's like a separate rabbit hole, but I think those things are gonna it's gonna change the internet and advertising in so many industries. It's
100%.
really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. I really enjoyed this conversation. We got into a lot of different rabbit holes here. For listeners, where can they go to find out more about you and Satsback?
Yeah, so it's obviously the website, satsback.com, and the social media platform that we're most active on is Twitter, and we have the @Satsback handle there. And then we have an active community on Telegram as well, and that should be the same handle @Satsback, but you could also find the link on the website. So yeah, and yeah, this has been so much fun. Thanks for having me, Kevin. It was great to speak to you and get to know you better. And yeah, let's do this again.
For sure. Sometime. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time, and I can't wait to do it again soon.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.
Welcome to the Lightning Round presented by Zebedee, your portal into the world of Bitcoin gaming. The Zebedee app, that is Zebedee, is a full-featured Lightning wallet and allows you to earn Bitcoin for playing games. Now, I thought it'd be fun to spice things up a bit. So if you go download the Zebedee app, you'll get a chance to compete against me and earn some extra sats. Each month, I'll be playing a different Zebedee game, and you can find them all in the Zebedee app. But this month, I'm going to play Sarutobi. Now, my high score on Sarutobi is currently 625 meters on flyby mode. So if you go download the Zebedee app and beat my high score, send me a screenshot of it on Twitter, as well as your Zebedee gamer tag, and I'll send you some extra sats. Good luck. All right, in the last 7 days, you guys sent in 76,020 sats to the show, 26 different supporters. Thank you to everyone sending in sats. We're gonna run through the top 5 of the last 7 days. Still in first is TKMIMICE with 24,000 sats sent in. An anonymous user from Castamatic has now sent in 16,887 sats in the last 7 days. Ben Tyler in third with 13,015. Gower Lentel with 3,792. And BTC Rich with 3,716. We've had a bunch of comments in the last week, but most of them we covered on the past episodes. We've just got 2 new ones here from episode 43 with Sam Walker. BTC Rich says, love to hear fresh voices on the Bitcoin circuit. Very thought-provoking. Could benefit internal corporate emails to reduce the amount of people copied and CC'd. I agree. The concept of being able to paywall your time in super small increments, like being able to put up a paywall for an email or a Twitter DM, I think this is going to be a really powerful concept moving forward. Like I don't think it's fully appreciated yet. Really, we can't earn for our time in chunks of less than like hours. You know, a typical corporate job is 40 hours a week. Maybe you can get a part-time job for 10 hours a week, but it's very hard to find someone who will pay you for anything for an hour a week or for 10 minutes a week. And so we can take that number all the way down to the seconds. And you can now charge by the second for your attention. I think that's really cool. So if you haven't seen the episode with Sam Walker, check it out. I think he's on something really big there. Kieran sends 2 rocket emojis to episode 43 as well. So yeah, check it out if you have not seen it already, and can't wait to see what you guys send in this week. And we got a couple more great guests coming up next week.